Hello Mark, I'm Eden. My number is S0341008 and my label is Junior. Today I'll read Margaret Heffernan, The Dangers of Willful Blindness, posted August 2013, rated experience courageous. In the northwest corner of the United States, right up near the Canadian border, there's a little town called Libby, Montana, and it's surrounded by pine trees and lakes and just amazing wildlife and these animals, enormous trees that screen up into the sky. And in there is a little town called Libby, which I visit, which feels kind of lonely, a little isolated. And in Libby, Montana, there's a rather usual woman named Gayla Benefield. She always felt a little bit of an outsider, though she's been there almost all her life, a woman of Russian extraction. She told me when she went to school, she was the only girl who ever chose to do mechanical drawing. Later in life, she got a job going house to house, reading utility meters, gas meters, gas meters, electricity meters, and she was doing the work in the middle of the day. And one thing particularly caught her notice, which was, in the middle of the day she met a lot of men who were at home, middle-aged, late middle-aged, and a lot of them seemed to be on oxy oxygen tanks. It struck her as stranger. It struck her as strange. Then a few years later, her father died at the age of 59, 5 days before he was due to receive his pension. His being a minor, she thought he must just have been worn out by the work. But then a few years later, her mother died, and that seems stranger still, because her mother came from a long line of people who just seem to live forever. In fact, Gayla's uncle is still alive to this day, and learning how to vote. It didn't make sense that Gayla's mother should die so young. It was an anomaly, and she came out posing over anomalies like this, and as she did, other ones came to mind. She remembered, for example, when her mother had broken a leg and went into the hospital, and she had a lot of x-rays, and two of them were leg x-rays, which made sense, but six of them were chest x-rays, which didn't. She puzzled and puzzled over every piece of her life and her parents' life, trying to understand what she was seeing. She thought about her tongue. The tongue had a vermiculite mine in it. Vermiculite was used for soil conditioners to make plants grow faster and better. Vermiculite was used to insulate lofts. Huge amounts of it put under the roof to keep houses warm and during the long Montana winters. Vermiculite was in a playground. It was in a football ground. It was in a skating rink. What she didn't learn until she started working this problem is vermiculite is a very toxic form of asbestos. When she figured out the puzzle, she started telling everyone she could what had happened, what had been done to her parents and to the people that she saw on oxygen tanks at home in the afternoons. But she was really amazed. She thought when everybody knows, they'll want to do something, but actually nobody wanted to know. In fact, became so annoying as she kept insisting on telling the story to her neighbors, to her friends, to other people in the community, that eventually a bunch of them got together and they made a bumper sticker which they proudly display on their cars, which say, "Yes, I'm from Libby, Montana, and no, I don't have asbestosis." But Gayla didn't stop. She kept doing research. The advent of the internet definitely helped her. She talked to anybody she could. She argued and finally she struck lucky when a researcher Control Town studied the history of mines in the area, and she told him her story, and at first, of course, like everyone, she didn't believe her. But he went back to Seattle and he did his own research and he realized that she was right. So now she had an ally. Nevertheless, people still didn't want to know. They said things like, well, if it were really dangerous, someone would have told us. If that's really why everybody was dying, the doctor would have told us. Some of the guys used to very heavy jobs say, I don't want to be a victim. I can't possibly be a victim in any way. Every industrial has its accidents, but still Gela went on and finally she succeeded in getting a federal agency to come to town and to screen the inhabitants of the town. 15,000 people, and what they discovered was that the town had a mortality rate 80 times higher than anywhere in the United States. That was in 2002, and even at that moment no one raised their hand to say, Gela, look in the playground where your grandchildren are playing. It's lined with vermiculite. This wasn't ignorance. It was willful blindness. Willful blindness is a legal concept which means if there's information that you could know and you should know, but you somehow manage not to know, the law deems that you are willfully blind. You have chosen not to know. There's a lot of willful blindness around these days. You can see willful blindness in blanks, which when thousands of people sold mortgages to people who couldn't afford them. You could see them in banks when interest rates were manipulated and everyone around knew that was going on. But everyone studiously ignored it. You can see willful blindness in the Catholic Church, where the case of child abuse went ignored. You could see willful blindness in the run-up to the Iraq War. Willful blindness existed on epic scales like those, and it also exists on very small scales in people's families, in people's homes and communities, and particularly in organizations and institutions. Companies that have been studied for willful blindness can be asked questions like, are these issues at work that people are afraid to raise? And when academics have done studies like this of corporations in the United States, what they find is 85% of people say yes. 85% of people know there's a problem, but they won't say anything. And when I'm duplicating the research in Europe, asking all the same questions. I found exactly the same number. 85%. There's a lot of silence. It's a lot of blindness. And what's really interesting is that when I go to companies in Sweden, they tell me it is this uniquely Swiss problem. And when I go to Germany, they say, oh yes, this is the German disease. And when I go to companies in England, they say, oh yeah, the British are really bad at this. And the truth is, this is a human problem. We are all under certain circumstances willfully blind. What the research shows is that some people are blind out of fear. They're afraid of retaliation. And some people are blind because they think, well, seeing anything is just futile. Nothing's ever going to change. If we make a protest, if we protest against the Iraq war, nothing changed. So why bother? Why bother? Better not to see the stuff at all. And the recurrent thing that I encounter all the time is people say, well, you know, the people who to see, they are whistle blowers, and we all know what happens to them. So there's this profound mythology around whistleblowers which says, first of all, they are all crazy. But what I've found going around the world and talking to whistleblowers is actually they are very loyal and quite often very conservative people. They are hugely dedicated to the institutions that they work for, and the reason that they speak up, the reason they insist on seeing, is because they care so much about institution and want to keep it healthy. And the other thing that people often say about whistleblower is, well, there's no point because you see what happens to them. They are crushed. Nobody will want to go through something like that. And yet, when I talk to whistleblowers, the recurrent term that I hear is pride. I think of Joe Darby. We all remember the photograph of Abu Ghraib, which so shocked the world and showed the kind of war that was being fought in Iraq. I wonder who remembers Joe Darby, the very obedient, great soldier who found those photographs and handed them in. And he said, you know, I'm not the kind of guy to rat people out, but something just crossed the line. Ignorance is bliss, they say, but you can put with things like this. I talked to Steve Bossy, a British doctor who fought for 5 years to draw attention to a dangerous surgeon who was killing babies. And I asked him why he did it, and he said, well, it was really my daughter who prompted me to do it. She came up to me one night and she just said, Dad, you can't let the kids die. Or I think of Cynthia Thomas, a really loyal army daughter and army wife, who, as she saw her friend and reactions coming back from the Iraq War, was so shocked by their mental condition and the refusal of the military to recognize and acknowledge post-traumatic stress syndrome that she set up a cabin in the middle of a military town to give them legal, psychologically and medical assistance. And she said to me, you know, Margaret, I always used to say I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I have found myself in this case. I'll never be the same. We all enjoy so many freedoms today. How long freedoms? The freedom to write and publish without fear of censorship. The freedom that wasn't here the last time I came to Hungary. A freedom to vote, which women in particular had to fight so hard for. The freedom for peoples of different ethnicities and cultures and sexual orientations to live the way that they want. But freedom doesn't exist if you don't use it. And what whistle blowers do, and what people like gay La Benefield do is they use the freedom that they have. And what they are very prepared to do is recognize that yes, this is going to be an argument. And yes, I'm going to have a lot of rules with my neighbors and my colleagues and my friends. But I'm going to become very good at this conflict. I'm going to take on the naysayers because they'll make my argument better and stronger. I can collaborate with my opponent to become better at what I do. These are people of immense persistence, incredible patience, and an absolute determination not to be blind and not to be silent. When I went to Libby, Montana, I visited the asbestosis clinic that Gala Benefield brought into being, a place where at first some of the people who wanted help and needed medical attention went in the back door because they didn't want to acknowledge that she'd have been right. I sat in a diner and I watched as trucks drove up and down the highway, cutting away the earth out of gardens and replacing it with fresh, uncontaminated soil. I took my 12-year-old daughter with me because I really wanted her to meet Gayla, and she said, "Why? What's the big deal?" I said, "She's not a movie star, and she's not a celebrity, and she's not an expert. And Gayla's the first person who say she's not a saint. The really important thing about Gayla is she is ordinary. She's like you and she's like me. She had freedom and she was ready to use it. Thank you very much. Pros. And added, my number is S0341008 and my level is junior. And see you next time.